Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at weather next week to 10 days in today's video. We'll also have a look at the temperatures over the stratosphere in the North Pole, have a look at the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillation. So a lot to cram in to today's video. I'll try and whiz through it all as quickly as I can. But before I get on with that, just to say about the ads at Gav's Web, it says links to articles on all of the pages. Have a browse through widgets and click through links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, you'll be helping us to pay for our website. Thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages, which own that content when you watch me close book up again does help to pay for gas. So this is my birthday today, so thanks to everybody that's been wishing me a happy birthday. You're all very, very kind and having a very nice day, so thanks to everybody for their birthday wishes. Right, let's get on with the video then. We'll start off with the temperature at 30 HPA over the North Pole. Actually we haven't seen any real cooling taking place yet in the stratosphere over North Pole. 30 HPA is one of the top layers of the atmosphere in the stratosphere, and this is over the North Pole. The grey line here is the trend line, and you see we're in a cooling time of year now, through towards the end of the year. This is January just here. We expect the temperature in the stratosphere over North Pole to cool. The black line is showing us how temperatures are actually doing this year. You see, I haven't really had any cooling yet. We're very much sticking around this grey line. Over the past few years, when we've been having these very mild winters, we've been tending in, around this time of year, October, November, we've been tending to get really big drops in the temperature in the stratosphere over North Pole, doing something like that with the black line. Haven't seen that yet. We could be that we get into November or December, we will get a big cooling taking place. But so far, no sign of it. And of course, to get blocking, one of the things we look out for to get blocking is a sudden stratospheric warming. That is where the black line doesn't do that. It will do something like this. It would shoot up, the temperature would shoot up in the atmosphere, in the stratosphere over North Pole. And when you get these sudden stratospheric warming, they occur very, very quickly over just 2 or 3 days. When they occur in that fashion, very often it will proceed towards blocking areas of high pressure. So you warm the stratosphere and it propagates down into the troposphere, and that sets up the blocking area of high pressure. So sudden stratospheric warmings are one of the things we look for in the winter to precede a period of blocking. If you remember last winter, we did have a very cold stratosphere over North Pole for much of the winter. Late on, we did get a sudden stratospheric warming, and a few weeks later, we increased the blocking. The blocking did arrive, but it wasn't until April, but it did give us quite a cold month in April, and that probably all started with the sudden stratospheric warming that occurred right towards the end of last winter. So it's one of the things that we watch out for to tell us whether we might get some blocking further down the road. So we'll be keeping an eye on this chart over the coming few weeks, of course. This is the GFS temperature forecast for the stratosphere. These are stratospheric temperatures for the next couple of weeks. This is actually starting on the 25th of October. So this blue area is the cold temperatures over stratosphere that we'll have right then on the 25th of October. Not particularly colder than average, of course. We know that we're trending very close to average temperatures in terms of those stratospheric temperatures over North Pole at the moment. If we just quickly run through, this is based on this morning's GFS, a midnight run of the GFS, you see that we do get a little bit of a warming occurring there. Not a sudden stratospheric warming, but for the start of November, we do actually get a little bit of a warming beginning to occur over towards the Siberian and Canadian side of the pole. That is very early to be seeing that happening, so that might be the start of a warming occurring in November. I'm not sure whether it is or not, but you would typically be expecting this blue area, which is the cold temperatures, of course, in the stratosphere over Pole. You would typically, this time of year, October, November, be expecting that to expand and get more intense, really, because as we saw with that trend line, it is a cooling time of year. So typically this blue area will get deeper and expand. So to start seeing greens appearing on these charts as early as the start of November, this is right at the extent range of the GFS, of course, so big health warning. But to get that on the 2nd of November, I think is quite unusual, so we'll need to keep an eye on it. Now, even without the without any warmings in the stratosphere over the North Pole, we've got plenty of blocking to be going on with. This is the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line here is where the Arctic Oscillation has been. The red line's at the end where the Arctic Oscillation is forecast to go. Remember, the Arctic Oscillation is an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere over the North Pole. A lot of people think of these indexes as drivers of the weather. They aren't. They just reflect what weather is doing, if you like. So if the Arctic Oscillation is negative, as we see that it is here, and it's forecast to stay negative, that tells you that there's blocking over North Pole. It's the blocking, it's a high pressure for blocking over the pole that is forcing the Arctic Oscillation negative. It isn't the Arctic Oscillation that's producing the blocking. So you always have to keep that at the back of our minds. You see, we go right back into the summer with this. See, through most of the summer and into September, we have positive Arctic Oscillation conditions, which tells us that there's a lot of low pressure up over the pole through the summer and into the autumn. But since October, this is 1st of October just here, since then, been downhill all the way with the Arctic Oscillation, really crashed through the first week. It's still negative now, and these red lines are staying in negative territory. This dashed line just here, that is neutral Arctic Oscillation condition. We never get back to neutral. We do rise up a little bit on the forecast, ensemble forecast in the next few days. We lift the Arctic Oscillation a little bit towards neutral, but not quite getting there. And then after that, through into the second half of October, actually, we're trending back down again. So this looks like quite a prolonged period of negativity of the Arctic Oscillation, which is telling us that blocking is likely to be sustained over the coming few weeks, over Scandinavia potentially, and maybe even eventually that might go to Greenland. The Arctic Oscillation does tend to move in sort of block months. So you can get 4 or 5 months of positivity of the Arctic Oscillation. If we could go further back with this chart, we would see that right to May, it would generally be positive with the Arctic Oscillation through to September. So you get several months going one way with the Arctic Oscillation, and then you can swing the other way for several months after that. So this might be, I say no more than might be, the start of quite an extended period of negative Arctic Oscillation index condition. And if it was to be, then of course when we get into winter, we'd have the blocking in place over the pole, and we'd have to think about cold weather for the winter. That's very speculative. It might be that we're going to go positive with the Arctic Oscillation at any point. But as I say, this index tends to go negative or positive over several months at a time. The North Atlantic Oscillation is very similar in terms that it moves in periods of months. Again, this is the observed and forecast chart for the North Atlantic Oscillation. This is simply an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere in the Atlantic. So the Arctic Oscillation is reflecting the state of the atmosphere over the pole. The North Atlantic Oscillation is reflecting the state of the atmosphere over the North Pole. Again, same idea. It's the atmosphere that drives the index, not the other way round. So, quite interestingly, actually, back in the summer, the North Atlantic Oscillation was quite negative, really, and that often in summer, that is often something that will go with quite a poor summer, quite an unsettled summer. We know actually that whilst all this negativity was going on with the North Atlantic Oscillation in August into September, we tended to have it quite warm and a lot of dry sunny weather, especially so for the south of the country. It is unusual to get the North Atlantic Oscillation diverging from the Arctic Oscillation. Normally they move in sync, so that was quite unusual. Since September, we've generally been positive with the North Atlantic Oscillation, although did go a bit negative there in the second half of September. The latest, this red area at the end of the chart, tells us that the trend really is down with the North Atlantic Oscillation. So it looks like we get into the second half of October and we possibly have the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation, both indexes, going negative. And this would be indicative of block conditions over the pole. And the further on we go with this, through October into November, if we sustain into November, further on we go, we have to think more and more and more about the chance of colder weather it's too early to produce much in the way of cold weather right now. But you get the Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation going negative in November, then you can perhaps start thinking, dare I say it, a bit about snow, particularly so for the north. So let's wait and see on that. GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next 2 weeks looking like this. The red line is a 30-year temperature average. Cooler than average for the rest of this week. Again, fairly mild today, but the trend is going to be down over the next few days. It's going to be quite cool. That easterly wind going to start getting up again into the weekend. Now you'll notice all these rainfall spikes appearing over the weekend and into next week. I'd urge caution on that. This is all associated with low pressure coming in from the southwest and south, coming up against this blocking feature over Scandinavia, and a battle is taking place at the weekend and into next week. I'll show you the charts on that in a moment, but urge caution because it looks like the Scandinavian high will actually win this battle, and it could be that in the end this low pressure will never really make it in to the UK to impact us with all of this rain. So it does look quite a wet spell there for the weekend and the start of next week, particularly for the south. But a little bit of caution is needed on that. In terms of the temperatures from the weekend into next week, they do go back up towards the 30-year temperature average, but you'll notice a huge amount of scatter there. From the warmest ensemble member to the coldest, I think there's something like a 20-degree temperature differential. Now remember that's in the upper atmosphere, but it does show that there is potential as we get through towards the latter stages of October to produce some really quite cold air. But equally there are some fairly warm members of the ensemble as well, so best to leave that alone. Temperature anomalies for the coming week generally coming out around average, maybe a little bit below from the 17th through 25th of October. The precipitation anomaly more or less average to a bit drier than average. Expect that to trend wetter over the next few days if this low pressure from the south impacts us. So let's have a look at the charts. This is for Friday, and the high pressure's back in over Scandinavia. So as I say, that easterly wind going to start to get up again through the course of this week. Quite cool and fairly dryish away from the eastern side through the remainder of this week. There will be some rain coming south and east tonight and tomorrow, and that's on a cold front that will introduce much cooler air. Now we go through into Saturday and then on into Sunday, still with this high pressure maintained over Scandinavia, but notice low pressure is developing out to the west and southwest. That's coming up against this blocking feature, so that's a battle taking place. The battle lines are drawn, if you like, between the high pressure up over Scandinavia, the low pressure down to the southwest. If that happens in winter, you get a lot of snow because the cold air comes up against the block. I should say the mild air, but the Atlantic comes up against the block. The cold air from the Scandinavian high undercuts, and it turns any precipitation to snow. So these sort of charts will lead to big snow events in the winter months. Now we go through into Monday, the week away, and again, battle lines really drawn, high pressures in over Scandinavia, low pressures down to the southwest. There's a weather front that's probably across Ireland, England and Wales, particularly that'll be producing a lot of heavy rain if this low pressure gets close enough. But as we go beyond this, look what happens. Eventually this low pressure starts to slip down to the south and the west again as this high pressure over Scandinavia, unusually, very unusual this, high pressure over Scandinavia wins the battle, and these easterly winds come back again. Now normally what happens is that the Atlantic comes up against these blocking features and sort of steamrollers over them. The block just collapses, goes down towards the Black Sea, the Atlantic sweeps through, and the westerlies are returned. Very unusual to see high pressure over Scandinavia, particularly at this time of year, winning the battle. But that low pressure by day 10, which is Thursday 27th of October, eventually finishes up down across the Mediterranean. It's in there across the Balearic Islands by Thursday 27th, and the east is firmly and well and truly back in from that Scandinavian high. Really, really unusual charts these for this time of the year. East WF finally, again, the high pressures in over Scandinavia by the end of this week. Winds are back in from the east. That continues into the weekend. Sunday finds this low pressure trying to move up from the southwest. Doesn't get as close to us as the GFS does. The low pressure just comes up against that blocking feature and slips away to the south. So that would probably restrict rain to just southwest England and Ireland, and most parts of the country would stay dry with that. So as I say, caution is needed on the chance of heavy rain in the south over the weekend into the start of next week. Beyond that, the ECMWF keeps this block over Scandinavia going with those easterly winds as well. So we run through next week and finish up on day 10, hinting at retrogression. We hint that eventually we get the high pressure moving towards Iceland. Winds are still in from the east. They're not particularly cold. Don't be thinking this is going to be producing anything notably cold. It is too early, particularly from the east, to get cold weather. You can get it from the north. Late October, a few years ago, 2008, we had snow at the end of October from a northerly wind. But from the east, it's really too early still to get much in the way of cold weather. So it's really the patterns that are very interesting at the moment. The way this blocking feature over Scandinavia is dominating the pattern. Looks like it's going to be doing so right through to the end of right through to the end of October. And where we go beyond that, get through into November, increasingly we will find it starting to turn colder with these easy winds if they continue into November. So some really interesting patterns around at the moment. And we're just going to have to wait and see where it's all going. I've gone on longer than normal for a weekday video. Sorry about that, but it is quite fascinating times with these patterns. That's all for now for today's video. I'll have to enjoy some birthday cake. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.